Good morning, students. So today's topic is root locus. So firstly, we will study the importance of the root locus method. Why we go for the root locus method. So basically, let's take an example of GSHS. The open loop transfer function has been given like this. So firstly, we will be finding out the roots of the characteristic equation that comes out to be this one. That is S equals to minus 1 upon K plus 1. So now we will keep on putting the values of this gain K, right? So firstly we will be putting the value of K as 0. Just see here, as it will be 0, S will be minus 1, then it will be 1. So minus 1 by 2 will be 0.5, then it will be 9. So minus 1 upon 10 will be 0.1, then minus 1 upon 99 plus 1 will be minus 1 upon 100. So that will be 0.01. Then when we are going to put it as infinity, we are going to get S as 0. So these are the roots of your this characteristic equation as the value of K varies from 0 till infinity. So I have just plotted all the values on the S plane. So this is my negative axis, and because all the roots are coming out to be negative, they are starting from minus 1 and approaching towards 0, as the value of K, you can see here, is varying from 0 to infinity. And this both defines the definition of the root locus method. Basically, root locus is how it is the locus of the roots as K is varied from 0 to infinity. How the roots are moving with respect to the value of K as it is varied from 0 to infinity is called the root locus. So now, as we have drawn it in this way, we can again take some another example. Like we can take the example of GSHS equals to K upon S into S plus 4. Now what is happening here is, now over this S power has increased by 1. So when it has got increased by 1, now the characteristic equation will become quadratic. So the quadratic equation in this form using our this transfer function will be S square plus 4S plus K equals to 0. And now the roots, two roots will be there, that is S1 and S2, that will be having the value of, using your B square minus 4AC formula, so we will be having this as the value. So now we have to calculate the value of S1 and S2 as the value of K varies from 0 to infinity, right? So this is simple single power of S, this is double power of S. What if now I will make it as K S square into S plus 4, let's say like this, or if I make it like S into S plus 1 into S plus 4, then what? Then I will be getting a cubic equation in S form. So that means as the value of the order of our this system keeps on increasing, so is the complexity to calculate the root locus of the roots increases. So to simplify this procedure, we go for our root locus method. And if you just see that how our this K affects our output, you just check out here, check the equation, let's say this one. So from here you can see that our omega n is directly dependent on the value of this K. Also, when you are going to calculate 2 zeta omega n equals to 4, this becomes 2, then your zeta is also dependent on the value of this K. So because both depend on the value of K, so this K that we are saying again and again, that as the value of K is moving from 0 to infinity, is going to affect the output of any process. So we need to find out that at which value of this K the system becomes unstable. Like if we are going to see here that even if when K becomes infinity, even then this system approaches 0, the roots become 0, and that is the marginal stability. So K should never be increased till infinity, but it should always remain to a finite limits. Even then the system will remain to be stable. So similarly, everywhere we define that up till which value of K the system will remain as stable, so that only those values of gain can be implemented in any system that we are designing. So to solve the problem of the complexity, we are provided with a set of rules for the construction of root locus, so that we can see that how the roots of any characteristic equation move with the value of K as the value of the K is varied. So first rule is that root locus is symmetrical about real axis. It simply means that whenever we are going to draw our root locus, whatever is above the real axis, the same mirror image will be there below the real axis. So it is always symmetrical about this real axis, only real axis, right? So then we come on to the second rule that say that root locus starts with an open loop pole and ends at an open loop 0 or infinity. So let's take an example that GSHS equals to K into S plus 3 divided by S plus 2. So when we are going to plot this on our real axis, we are going to find out that this gives S equals to minus 2 while this gives S as equals to minus 3. So here let's say minus 1, this is minus 2, then this is minus 3. So 0 has to be shown like this. So this is minus 3, minus 2. So that means this root locus is always going to start from this pole and it is going to end at 0. And let's say in this example, if it would have only been K upon S plus 2 and there would have not been any 0 here, so then it would have been simply this pole. So root locus would have started from here and it will end at infinity. So if there is no 0 present, your root locus will start from an open loop pole and it will end at infinity. So now we come on to the next rule that says that the number of root loci branches, that how many branches that particular numerical will have, then it will be equal to number of poles if poles are greater than zeros, number of zeros if zeros are greater than poles, and it will be equal to both of them if they are equal. So that means whatever is more, like in this case zeros are 1, poles are 1, so only one number of root loci will be there. Similarly here, because there are no zeros, so again one branch will be there. And let's say if we have got something like S into S plus 4, because here now 2 poles are there, so the number of root loci branches will be 2, right? So now we come on to the next important rule that says that any point on the real axis is a part of root locus if the number of poles plus zeros towards its right side are odd. Just see here, now I have taken this example. We have got 3 poles. They are at S is equals to 0, minus 3 and minus 4. So I have just plotted them here. The crosses shows the poles that we have got in the characteristic equation. So now from here you can just see that when we check out our this pole, the number of roots towards its right are 1 and 2. So 2 is even, so that means our root locus will not go from here. So we come on to your rule number 2 that says that if a root locus starts from here, it should end at infinity. So that means when we are plotting this branch, this root locus will start from here and end till infinity, but there will be no root locus between minus 4 and minus 3. Now we come on to this pole. Check out the number of poles towards its right. Yes, this is only single pole towards its right, so that means our root locus will exist between this area. So the root locus exists between this whole portion, and why we require it is because we always get the breakaway point as 2 or 3 values. When we are going to discuss the next rule, we are going to find out that we get 2 or 3 values to find out which point on this S-plane is the exact breakaway point. We must know that between which 2 poles our root locus lies, and only from these 2 or 3 values, only that single point we are going to take that lies on the root locus branch. So now let's discuss this rule. So now we come on to our next rule that tells us to find out that how to find out this breakaway point. So basically what we want to do is we want to have our characteristic equation in terms of K, and then we want to have the value of K, because breakaway point says that the value of dk by ds equals to 0 provides us with the value of the breakaway point. So now we are going to take the derivative of this K with respect to S. So this thing becomes minus 3s square minus 12s and minus 10. So now equating it to 0, so this becomes 3s square plus 12s plus 10 equals to 0, and the roots that we get from our this quadratic equation using minus b plus minus under root of b square minus 4ac upon 2a is going to give me the value of s1 equals to minus 1.1835 and s2 equals to minus 2.815. So now we have to know that which one is the exact breakaway point. So for the same example, now we come on to the asymptotic angle. So if you all remember in your plus 2, you all have done the hyperbola parabola, where we used to draw a set of straight lines like this, along which the parabola we used to draw like this. Similarly, it can be at any angle along which we used to draw the parabola. So exactly these are the straight lines along which the parabola or the hyperbola or the root locus branches, they go till infinity, they move parallel to them. So to find out the angles that we have to plot on the real axis, we have got our this formula 2k plus 1 into 180 divided by p minus z. So not to confuse with k again, I am going to replace my this as q, so that you shouldn't get confused with the gain k and this q, this because this is a constant that takes the values 0 1 2 till p minus z minus 1. So here if we take the example, two roots from this quadratic equation, third from here, so p equals to 3, so that means the value of q will go from 0 to 2. 0 1 p minus z minus 1 becomes 3 minus 1 2. So it is going to take three values as q equals to 0, q equals to 1 and q equals to 2. So corresponding to that, we are going to put the values here and we are going to find out the values of the angle, that is 60 degree, 180, 300 degrees. So for this you are going to need a d, because by putting your d over here, then we are going to find out that this is going to be my 60 degree or whatever it is. So you require a d for this. So when you are going to plot your these angles, we have to find the exact location of where to find them, and that location is given by the centroid of the asymptotes. So now the formula for centroid of the asymptotes makes it to be rule 7. So the formula for calculating the centroid of the asymptotes is sigma equals to real parts, sum of the real parts of poles minus sum of the real parts of zeros divided by p minus z. So here sigma becomes, let's take the example of this. After calculating the roots of this quadratic equation using b square minus under root of b square minus 4ac by 2a, we are going to find out that the roots are coming out to be complex, and they always come in complex conjugate. And just remember one thing, never to write your these two things as simply this, because then when you are going to put the values of the real parts here, you are only going to put minus 3 a single time. But in actual, because there are 3 roots, so 3 real parts should be there. This real part is 0, this is minus 3 and again minus 3, so 2 times minus 3 should be there. So this is the main thing that some of the students always create mistakes in the exams by writing it like this and by writing only a single time minus 3 like this. So minus 3 cancels out and it becomes 1, and that is the wrong answer, because in actual you get your minus 2 here, because this is minus 6 by 3 becomes minus 2. So now we come to know that at which point on our S plane we are going to put the angles 60 degree, 180 degree and 300 degree. So this is the point, that is minus 2, where we have to draw the angles. So now we come on to our rule that provides us the intersection point with the imaginary axis, because when our root locus moves, it also cuts sometimes the imaginary axis and moves towards the right hand side of the plane. So this is our example. First we have taken the characteristic equation as 1 plus GSHS, and then we have calculated the routes criteria that we have done previously. So from our this equation we get the value of k that we are going to put it our auxiliary equation of s square. So that is going to provide us the value of s as plus minus 3.16. So now we come to know that whenever we are going to draw our root locus, if this is my plus 3.16j and this is my minus 3.16j, then my root locus is going to cut the imaginary axis at these 2 points. So the last rule is to calculate the angle of departure of the complex poles. You have to apply this rule only in case you get your complex poles. If you are getting all the real poles or real roots in your numerical in the given question, then you need not proceed for this rule. You have to skip this rule for the real roots getting from the characteristic equation. So the formula for this is 180 degree. I have taken the angle of departure only. So it will be 180 degree minus sum of angles drawn to the imaginary poles from other poles plus sum of the angles drawn to this pole from zeros. If there are zeros, then the angles will be added, and if there are other poles, then angle will be subtracted from 180 degree. So here I have taken an example where we have got 4 poles and no zeros are there. So the 4 poles values are this, and I have drawn it here on the S-plane also. So basically, let's say we want to calculate the angle of departure of our this pole, and mind it, if we calculate the angle of departure of this as like minus 45 degree, we need not calculate the angle of departure of this, because these are complex conjugate, it will be only magnitude will be same, only sign will be different. So if it is minus 45, it will come out to be plus 45. So we need to only calculate the angle of departure of a single complex pole. So now what we have to do is, according to this, we have to take a scale and we have to mark the lines that subtend to our, because we want to calculate for this pole what is the angle of departure. So we are going to subtend the lines using a scale with this particular pole. So all the poles I have just subtended the angles, and now using a D we need to find out this angle, that let's say is theta p1. Then my this angle, that is, you people can see that this is because perpendicular, so this will always be 90 degree, and my this angle, this will be my theta p2. So according to our this formula, my phi d will be equal to 180 degree minus, so it will be sum of the 3 angles, that will be theta p1 plus theta p2. So let's say that we are getting the values of our this theta p1. Let's say, for example, we are taking that this is 90 degrees, so let's say theta p1 is 123 degrees, and let's say our this theta p2 is 40 degrees or 37 degrees around. So then I am going to get the value of angle of departure as minus 70 degrees. So this minus 70 degree goes for your this complex pole, so plus 70 degree will go for your this complex pole, because basically angle of departure means that your this pole is going to leave its this position in the complex S plane and move along with the value of, as the value of k is changed from 0 to infinity, now your this pole is going to leave its place from here and it will go to some position, to some direction. So that direction is given by plotting this angle and then plotting your this pole along with that particular angle. So I have just solved out the numerical. GSHS is given as k upon s into s plus 4 into s plus 5, and now we are going to plot it. I have solved all the rules here. We know that now my poles are 0, minus 4, minus 5. There is no 0 over there, only poles are there. So I'm just going to plot it and we are going to discuss all the rules one by one. So firstly we want to draw our this thing, that is the number of poles I am going to draw here. So just see here, this is, let's say, minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, minus 4, and here it is, say, minus 5. So now I am going to draw the poles. That comes out to be s equals to 0, then s equals to minus 4, and s equals to minus 5. So now I want to see that on this S plane, on this real axis, where the root locus lies. So again, minus 5, on the right side of minus 5 there are two poles, so that means my root locus will go from minus 5 to infinity, and it will lie between these 2 points, that is 0 and minus 4. So root locus will be there between these 2 points, but not between minus 5 and minus 4, right? So now we come on to our next thing, that gives me the value of my this sigma, where I have to plot the asymptotes. So on minus 3 the sigma is there, so I'm going to plot my sigma equals to minus 3. I'm going to plot my asymptotic angles, that comes out to be 60 degree. So let's say this is my 60 degree. You all have to draw it with your D's. So this is 300 degrees and this one is our 180 degree, this one. So we have got our this thing 60 and 180 degrees. On minus 3 I have just plotted it. So next we come on to the breakaway point. So just see here that two breakaway points are coming out. One is minus 1.47 and second is, just see where it is going to lie. Minus 1.47 is going to lie somewhere over here, or just in the middle of these. So I'm just going to write here minus 1.47, and the next one is minus 4.52. so minus 4.52 is coming in that portion where we just said that root locus will not exist. So that means we are going to neglect our minus 4.52 and we are going to take our minus 1.47. So next we come on to intersection with the imaginary axis. We have just taken the Routh's criteria, we have taken the equation, and we now come to know that our intersection point is 4.47. so I am just going to draw here our all the points. So let's say this is J, 2J, 3J, 4J and 5J over here, and similarly J, 2J. Now this will be minus, so minus 3J, minus 4J and minus 5J. So now what will happen? These two poles are going to come together at this breakaway point. What is the breakaway point? It is always between two poles, because when we talk about your breakaway means that two poles get attracted towards each other, and then at certain point with the value of this k they come close to each other and then they split into your S plane. So the same thing is going to go here. It is going to get attracted towards each other and then they are going to split like this. And now where they are going? Because we have got the imaginary part intersection, so that means this root locus is going to break from this point and it is directly going to intersect with the imaginary axis and going towards your right hand side. Similarly for the downward side, it is going to split like this. So it is going to go like this in this direction. And now just see that we calculated that n is equals to 3. So here just see that one branch is this one, second is this one, and the next is this one. So now we are going to find out that our this value becomes unstable at which value of k. At which value of k your this root locus is going beyond that. So that is the value for k greater than 60 degree. It is going to become. So as we discussed about this in the intersection with that using Routh's criteria, this was the equation coming. So the k's value should be less than 60 for the system to be stable. So that means as soon as the value of k is made greater than 60, the system will become unstable and go towards the RHS. That we should neglect. We should never keep the value of k more than 60. Till that the system will be stable. So that's all for now. Thanks for watching.